Welcome back to Liz's Scrapping Studio, and we are going to do another layout today using the Paper Pumpkin December 2023 leftover parts of the kit. So I have some pieces out on my table here that we're going to be working with. I've cut up more pieces of the Paper Pumpkin card bases, and I have actually used the stylish shapes, and I'm missing the piece here, but the stylish shapes, these are squares. So the stylish shapes has banners and it has squares. And I've actually taken the stylish shape square and I cut these pieces 2 inches by 2 inches out of the card. And this is the smaller one. And then I laid the 2-inch square on top to get the perforated edges that you see on these pieces. So there's a little bit of a story about this. I was working on this particular layout and I was getting ready to cut up a bunch of the card bases, and I had cut up 2 of the card bases already. I was working on cutting up the others and trying to think about my layout, and I had this design in mind. And then I popped on one night on YouTube last week, and another former maker who has a much bigger following than I do and is much more well known had done essentially the layout that I was thinking about doing. And that kind of threw me a bit for a loop. And I was kind of, I don't know if it would be off my game, but I was just like, I wasn't sure I was even going to do this video, if I was even going to try. I thought maybe I would just pack this away and not even bother and just kind of move on. And I know that happens when we are creative and we are working on something and we see something maybe that's more difficult than we thought it might be, and it becomes very frustrating, or it is for my case, because this is part of my business, I don't really want to copy what somebody else is doing, and I didn't want to put out a video that was very similar to what she had done, and she just happened to do it quicker than I did, and she has definitely got that bigger following, and so I was really coming down on myself. And so what I wanted to say on this video, before we get into the actual details of doing this, is that be kind to yourself. Be kind to the creations that you are doing, and know that even if you're not doing this as a business, or you're just doing this for fun, and it's a hobby, and you're trying to just improve, that it's okay if things don't go the way that you thought they might go. And this technique is actually going to hopefully help you kind of explore that. So with that, enough of that. I had squares cut out. I decided I was going to change them up a bit, like I said, with using that die, that's Stylish Shapes die from Stampin' Up. So I do have that 2 card bases already cut out, and I'm using that. I have some additional card bases left over that we're going to use on this layout that's just the sky, as well as the solid card bases. I had 2 of those left as well. So we've still got plenty to play with. I also played around with some white cardstock using that same die, as well as the die that is part of the extra purchase for Paper Pumpkin for this month, which is Thanks and Beyond. There was this die, again, very similar in design to the Stylish Shapes. And I took the 2x2 square and I created this peak, or this picket, essentially, to see if that might work. I didn't end up liking that, so I didn't end up using it. But again, there are other dies that you could use that you might try that are probably in your stash. All right, so those we're going to set aside. There were these extra pieces that were part of the Paper Pumpkin kit. We're gonna this one for sure I think we're going to use. I'm not sure if we're going to use these other two. We will see. And then I have a bunch of letters cut out that are going to be my title. So we'll just put those off to the side. And then we're going to do a technique that is using acetate. And this technique is you're going to need either pens. So you can use the Stampin' Write pens if you have other colors. These colors do not work with this particular color on these cards that we're cutting up. So that is, you know, if you have these Stampin' Write markers in other colors, then I would say that you could use those. You cannot use alcohol markers on it. So the Stampin' Blends will not work with this technique. You need to have the water-based markers. So the Stampin' Write ones will work. I didn't have the Stampin' Write markers for this color. And again, this color is, let's just double check, is Balmy Blue. That's on this kit. But Capri, from a close to my heart color palette perspective, is very, very close and will work really well for this technique. So as you can see, it is a very, yeah, turning it over. I'm used to having two-sided cardstock, so I still have that habit of flipping it over to see the other side. But Capri is a really close match. A paintbrush, it does not have to be expensive, just a basic paintbrush. I am going to be using these Stampin' Spritzers that Stampin' Up has. I really actually like these. It has a very nice spray to it when you use it, but you could just use a regular spray bottle or other sprayer that you might have. And then you'll need a piece of acetate. Now this is, and this is going to be hard to see even on the background here, but this is just a piece of acetate that I have that I've cut up. This happens to be from Amazon, and it's got some weight to it. It's not too thin, but it's also not too thick, so it makes it very flexible to use, and that's going to be important in this technique. Now, I did play around with using other pieces of acetate. So there is that thin layer of plastic that's on top of your stamp set that comes with your Paper Pumpkin. I did try this. We'll play around with that a little bit so you can see the difference. You could actually theoretically also use the acetate that the stamps are on. This is a thicker plastic, and that would also work. It feels just feeling wise, it does feel a little bit stiffer than the acetate that I'm showing here. All right, so with that, I'm going to clear off my my desk, and we're going to get ready to show you the technique. Again, we're going to play around a little bit first, and then we're going to get into actually putting the layout together. All right, now I've got all my supplies out, and we're ready to go through how this technique works. So I'm actually working on my all-purpose mat here, and hopefully you'll be able to see things really well on this all-purpose mat. But I've also pulled out the silicone mat from Stampin' Up, and we're gonna potentially use this as well. Again, I'm going to be using the Capri. This is a little bit easier technique if you do have those pens, but it is certainly doable with using just a stamp pad. All right, so there are two ways that we could make this work. So what I'm doing is I'm just squeezing the pad so that I get ink on the lid of the pad, right? So I'm just trying to make sure that I get enough ink. The other option is that on the silicone pad, you can just pull down some ink onto that, like that, and we can pick up the ink from there. So there's two options. I have a piece of cardstock, white Whisper White cardstock here, and then this piece of acetate. And The trick to this is we want to get the ink laid down on the acetate, and then we're going to get that wet and we're going to play with it. And so this is definitely a technique that you want to practice before you actually go to your paper. You can use a brush if you don't have, again, the pens. You can actually do this with multiple colors. So the in colors, if you took the pinks and the pinks and the yellow, or the whatever, sorry, I should have all these colors memorized by now, but the peach pie, the pretty in pink, and the petunia pop, if you put those together, they will look like a sunset. And you can layer these across, and I might show you what that looks like as part of this demo. So I have a dry brush. If you have a water brush, this would also work using a water brush. Just make sure your tip is dry. I'm going to come in and I'm going to grab some of this ink on this brush. And what I'm trying to do is pick up enough ink on this brush that I can swipe across this acetate and get a good line. The other way you might be able to do this as well is with a re-inker. So you could put a dollop of a re-inker onto the silicone mat, and you can pick up the inker with your brush. All right, so hopefully you can see that I've got, now you can't see it if I lift it up, but hopefully you can see that I've got ink down. I'm trying not to get too streaky, but unfortunately with a brush, you're going to get more streaky than if you use the pen. Okay, so I think I've got a good amount of ink down. So now I'm going to take my spray spritzer, and these are really good. The nozzles are really good. They have a nice, good spray. And I'm going to go ahead and come here and I'm going to spray. I'm going to give a good spray to that ink. And I get a nice mist, pretty even mist across that. Now I can go straight to my paper like this and do this technique. So you're just going to turn it over. And again, you have a lot of control because you're on a piece of flexible acetate. So you have control over where you're going to put this on your layout. But we're going to just start up here in this corner, and we're going to go ahead and lay this out. And we do want this sort of this streakiness. We're trying to get this sort of, I don't know exactly what to call it, but we don't want anything too uniform. So over on this side, I didn't have enough water. And so it still looks pretty uniform on that side compared to the other side. So we can go back in again, pick up some ink, and we can add it to this and we can try again. And that's why I said it's really a technique that you should play around with before you, to sort of see what look you want and how much water you want, how you want this to be, as far as uniformity or non-uniformity, right? All right, so we're going to spray this. This is a little bit less ink this time. And we're going to go in. Oops, I think I need a little bit of a spray here at the end. There we go. And again, we're going to come in, and you can layer. Okay, so you can layer this on top of itself, and we're just going to add that here. And again, I've got a lot of water coming off on that one side, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and work with that. And then we're going to lift this up. It is a good idea to have a paper towel handy so that you can clean up any messes around you so that you don't transfer ink anywhere. So just having a paper towel to clean up, or even a kitchen towel would also be fine. Okay, so you can see that that was a lot lighter. I didn't have as much ink. Okay. All right, so another way that we can play with this is I'm going to go ahead and just open up my ink pad this time. And again, just go in. I'm going to go ahead and grab this ink. I'm going to put it onto my acetate. And we're going to try a second technique, or a second way to get this to look a little bit different. So again, just trying to get enough ink on here, like so. Okay, we're going to go ahead and spray this again to get it wet. And then we're going to come in with that same paintbrush and we're going to go one direction. We're not going to go back and forth. We're just going to go one direction like this, spread it out. And then we're going to go again to our paper and we're going to place it where we want it. And we're going to lay it down. So this is actually going to give us a slightly different look. And hopefully you can see that. This without the brush strokes is much more compact. The ink is sitting together and isn't creating a lot of separation. When we added the paintbrush to it, it created this separation of that ink. It created spaces, or it had the ink separate from itself when we used the paintbrush. So again, slightly different look and slightly different feeling to it, depending on how you want to do this. All right, so let's try this using this top piece of the stamp set from the Paper Pumpkin. Now, this does have a little bit of a ripple in it. Ideally, you don't want to have that. Ideally, you would want to have it to be fairly pristine as a piece, but it's going to work. It will work fine. We're just going to do this as a practice in case you don't have any acetate other than something that you have gotten from Stampin' Up, is from one of your stamp sets. So again, I'm trying to get some ink here. I need a little bit more, so we're going to go ahead and press that down to pick up some more ink. Add that in. All right, again, we're going to do that first technique first. So we're going to spray and then we're going to lay it down and see how this worked. The same or different? So again, I got a bunch of water on there, so it kind of spread out. And there's not using the paintbrush other than to add the ink onto the acetate. All right, so let's do this again and try with the brush technique. So again, grabbing that ink, getting a good layer down on the acetate. And you can go into your ink pad as well. I did try that. You pick up a little bit more ink when you go into your ink pad, so that might be a little bit easier for you. All right, so we're going to spray that. And we're going to take our paintbrush again and we're going to go in and just go one direction on that. And then we're going to lay that down on our scrap piece of paper. Okay. So, didn't get as much separation. Most of that separation is really because I have a bend in my paper, in my acetate, and it caused kind of a wrinkle effect versus what we had over here. This is definitely more solid than this was over here as well, but it does feel a bit more diffused or a bit more watercolory with that one. So again, this one will work. I would just say that you want to play around with it and see if you can get the effect that you like. All right, so we're going to flip this over and I'm going to just close that up. And I am going to clean off my brush, just adding a bunch of water to my palette here. I'm going to clean that off because what we're going to do now is I want to show you the difference, or showing you layering using the Stampin' Up pens, because I think that will help you see how you can actually do some really cool techniques with your with those pens. So now I have a clean brush to work with. I'm going to go ahead and turn our palette over, and I'm going to bring in the Stampin' Right pens. So I'm going to pull out Peach Pie, I'm going to pull out Petunia Pop, and I'm going to pull out the Pretty in Pink. I'm not going to use Shy Shamrock or oh, what's the other one? Sorry, Shy Shamrock and Summer Splash. So we're just going to use these three. And I'm going to start with the, and I'm going to use the brush tip. I'm going to start with the Peach Pie. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay some ink down on this acetate. Now, I'm starting with Peach Pie because it's pretty light, and I don't want to mix the pink, the darker pink, with the orangey color of Peach Pie. So we're going to lay Peach Pie down first, then we're going to go right next to it and we're going to add Pretty in Pink, and then we're going to grab the Petunia Pop. And Petunia Pop is much darker, so we want to be careful. Okay, so those are the three colors. So hopefully, again, I'll bring this up and hopefully you can see those three colors laying there on the acetate. So the same process, we're going to go ahead and spray this. Give it a nice even coverage of spray, hopefully. And we're going to put this down just like we did the first time. We're just going to leave it like that, and we're going to put it down on our paper. Now, when you use water and cardstock, you will get some paper bowing. The paper is going to absorb that water, and so your paper is going to get a little bit wonky. But this piece in particular, we're putting a lot of water on, so it's going to be a lot more wonky than say what we'll actually put on our layout, because we're not going to be putting quite so much water in quite such a concentrated space. But anyway, there you go. You can see those three colors, and it can look really much like a sunset if you do these three colors. All right, so let's do this again, but let's try with that brush. And I'm going to just wipe off my acetate just because I see a bunch of water on it, and I want to make sure that I have a good surface to start with. Okay, brush tip. Again, we're going to lay down the Peach Pie. Then we're going to do the Pretty in Pink. And then the last one we're going to do is Petunia Pop. Okay, we're going to spray that. And we're going to take our brush, and again, we're going to just do strokes, one direction, from top to bottom, so from light to dark. And then we're going to lay this down on our paper. And then when we lift it up, it looks even more like a sunset. And the reason is because we took the brush and we blended those colors together a lot more like a watercolor technique using these pens. So again, this is just a fun way to play around with your paper, with your inks, your dye-based inks, whether it's the pens or the stamp pads from Close to My Heart, or from Stampin' Up, and the pens from the Stampin' Right pens. All right, so now that I've taught you that piece, what we're going to do is we're going to now go back to our layout, and we're going to start playing around with our layout and how we are going to do this technique on that layout. I've brought out the layout and the design that I think I'm going to end up going with. So I needed to lay everything out so that I knew where I wanted to put these swashes of color, for lack of a better way to describe it. So on the left-hand side here, I'm going to have two photos, and I'm going to have sort of this this flower sky combination of those 2x2 squares. And then on the right-hand side, I'm going to have the 4 squares up here in the upper right-hand corner. And then I'm going to have 3 photos on this right-hand side. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to use this piece down here at the bottom. And what that gives me is that gives me this nice area over here on the left-hand side to add these swashes of color. And then I can add a swash of color up here as well, to the left of this four square of those flowers and sky. So with that, now that I kind of know what my layout is going to be, I can then start thinking about where I want to place these colors. So I'm going to just take the right side away, and we're going to pull in the left side away. No, right side away, we'll pull in the left side. And I'm going to go ahead and start with just something really simple. I am just going to put roughly where, and again, I don't have this measured out. I haven't done any like, okay, this is, you know, 1/4 inch from the left, etc. I'm going to just put a light pencil line sort of in the area of where this is going to be, because I want these swashes to go into and under these photos. And so I just want to make a place mark so that I can see where I'm going to lay this down, so that I can take all of this away and I can then play with these pieces. So hopefully you can see that I've just got a really light pencil mark there. And now I'm going to pull in, again, my acetate. I'm going to pull in my brush and my little paper towel. And actually, I think I'm going to replace my paper towel because it's pretty wet right now. So I think I'm going to just bring in a dry one here. And I'm going to bring in my Capri ink again. So in this case, I'm just using one color. I could choose to try to do 2 colors, but I'm just not sure how they will play out with only really having that gold color and having that mash up with the blue. I didn't practice that, so I think I'm going to just stick with the single color on this particular layout. I'm going to go into the pad directly, and I'm going to start laying down some ink. Now, I did clean my brush too before I started this, so that I made sure that I had a clean brush that I was working with. And so just going directly in, maybe picking some up here as well. I want an organic shape. I don't want to have just like a straight flat line at the top. And I do need quite a bit of coverage on this one, so I am laying down more ink. But as I go in, I don't want it to look like a square or a rectangle. I want it to, you know, kind of be free flowing. So I'm trying not to make it too perfect when I'm laying down the ink, so that it doesn't look too perfect when I actually put it down. Even though it didn't really, I just don't want a harsh line if I can avoid it. So again, I'm just sort of playing with the shape a bit and trying to make it somewhat organic. Okay, so now that I've got that, I can grab the water and I'm going to spray that just like we did before, making sure we got good coverage. Then I'm going to come back in with that brush and go one direction, and I'm going to just drag through just to create that movement. So now I'm going to come to where I put that line, that little mark, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come to the left of that mark is where I'm going to start. And then I'm going to lay this down. And again, I'm trying to go slowly. I want the ink to spread, but not too terribly much. Okay, so I'm going pretty slow. And I think I got a pretty good coverage there. And I like that. Okay, I think that looks really nice. And if you pull this back over and you lay this down, this has got a nice feel to it, right? It's got a nice organic feel to it. So pretty happy with that. Okay, so let's do another one. And again, I'm gonna try and do a different shape this time. This one I might do a little bit longer. This one's a little bit wider. So this one I might do a little bit narrower so that it's not, so it doesn't look exactly the same. And again, spray our water. Oops, got a little bit too much on the paper there. Got to pay attention to where that nozzle is pointing. Again, that looks good. And I think let's come down here a little bit. Let's do one down here. All right. So again, this one's a lot narrower and longer, but again, has some nice splotches. So now we've got sort of two. I think I need one over in this area for balance. So we'll do another one, and maybe we'll make this guy a little bit smaller. This is just Whisper White cardstock, okay? If you don't like it, pick up another piece. Do it again, okay? It's just white cardstock, okay? You do not need to worry. You're not losing a lot of paper. The idea is here to play around and see what you like. And so, again, I'm going to have a little bit of a relationship to this one up here. And I'm going to put that down like that. And so I might do another small one maybe down over here. It's up to you how many you put on. You don't have to put on that many. You can just do a couple. And then you're going to want to just double check with your pictures, with your layout, how it's coming together. Okay, so after this one, I'm going to put my pieces back down and we're going to take a look and see how we feel about it. And if we don't like it, we start over. Again, it's just white cardstock. And I don't want to go too long. I don't want to have too many trailers, so I think I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull in our pieces again, and let's just see how this is looking. So roughly, I'm just looking for my pencil marks again, just so that I can try and lay this out very similarly to the way I had it. So we can see if we like, or if we feel like we need any more on this one. And we don't really need to worry about these guys over here, but we'll put them there. Okay. So I'm thinking I need maybe a little bit over on this side, just looking at it. I feel like maybe this needs a little bit more. This got a little bit close together. I probably shouldn't have put it so close together. I think this looks really nice. So I might do something a little bit here and a little bit here. So that's kind of my next step, is to go ahead and do that. And at this point, I'll fast forward so that you don't have to watch me do this again, because I think the technique is fairly straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and do that ad, and then we will come back and do the assembly, because I'll do the other side as well. right. So I am quite happy with how this is working or looking at this point. And so my next step is to start putting all these pieces together. So I'm going to clean up my space a little bit, and we're going to come back and we are going to do the assembly and the embellishments. All right, I've got all of the splotches down now on my paper. I've relayed out the pictures and the embellishments and things. And one of the things I realized is that the blue was just being very flat. So the blue that I added, the Capri that I added, just seemed really flat. And I felt like I needed to add in a little bit of the yellow into the splotches, for lack of a better word, onto the page. And so I went ahead and I grabbed my Sundance and I did the same step that I did for the Capri. And I did do a practice round just so that I could take a look and see if I liked it before I went ahead and went direct to paper. And so I laid out the Capri and then the Sundance. And one of the things that I noticed was that the ink worked a little bit differently compared to the Capri, where the separation when I did the swiping of the paintbrush across the ink, it separated a lot more. And so I ended up, when I did these inking spots, I ended up not using the paintbrush to separate the ink. I did give it a good amount of water to get the ink to sort of start separating, but I didn't actually use the paintbrush. And I just kind of strategically placed small pieces of the yellow in. And just remember that when you are working with blues and yellows, they do create green when you mix them together. And so I do have a couple of spots where I got a little bit of green and a couple of spots that did that color transition. But I didn't apply the yellow, the Sundance, until after the Capri was completely dry. So by waiting until the Capri was completely dry, I had less of the ink mingling with with the other color, and so I reduced the amount of greenish tint that I would have gotten if I had applied the yellow when the blue was still wet. The other thing that you want to be careful of when you're doing that is that you clean your brush really well between the blue and the yellow, because again, the blue and the yellow on the brush will mix to create green, and that might not be the look you're going for. The last thing that I wanted to mention is that you may not like how it looks when you first put it down. When you first put the ink down, you may go, oh, this was a big mistake. Let it dry. Okay, let it dry, because it will look different when it dries. So if we just take a look at this sample that we did, you will notice that the colors blended together a little bit better on this one that we didn't use the paintbrush on. And they started to creep into each other a little bit more. And it looks better than it did when we first looked at it when I did the sample. This one as well. This one looks, to me, at least better than it did when we did the sample. So again, reserve judgment for how this is working for you until after it dries. Lastly, you'll notice that my paper is curling, and that is because we applied water to non-water color paper. This is just plain cardstock. I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about the warping, because it's going to go into a sheet protector, and then that's going to go into an album. It will end up looking fairly flat once we do all of those things. All right, so now that we've done that, I have my layout. A couple of additional things that you might see is I have actually changed my photos. I had 4x4 photos here and here, and they weren't working. I really wanted to add some additional black for grounding on this layout. because it's got a lot of light colors in it, and I didn't feel like I had enough grounding, and I was going to have a black title. And so I really wanted to have the pictures have a black mat. And when I did the 4x4, the card base that I had cut, it wasn't giving me enough blue around it. So I went ahead and I switched this out to a 3x4, and I switched this one out to a 3x3. And then I also decided I needed to pull in more gold. So I knew I was going to use this piece down here in the lower right-hand corner, but I didn't think I had enough gold to balance it out on both sides. And I had this one picture that I wanted to add as a larger picture. And so what I did is I took the gold foil paper and I just cut this as, again, a mat for this 4x6. This is a much smaller mat. This has only got an 1/8 of an inch reveal versus a 1/4 of an inch, but I didn't want a huge amount. I wanted it to kind of be proportional to what was on these tags. And I did gut out the mat. So this is expensive paper and I didn't need it behind the picture. So I gutted out this mat so that I could use that piece on something else in the future. I did have this up on foam tape and I decided I didn't like that, so I pulled off the foam tape, which is why you see it's a little bit bubbly there. And then the last thing I did is I also took a sliver of the gold foil paper to bring more gold foil over to the left-hand side. I didn't like this transition between the blue and the clouds. And so by just doing a small 1/8 of an inch strip of gold, I think that, again, really allows me to, again, pull the gold over to the left a little bit more and to balance it out. I am going to be playing with these two. This was the circle that was part of the die cuts that were left, and I cut it in half. And my thought is I might add it over on this left-hand side and add one maybe over here on the right-hand side. Again, as I play with the embellishments here, I will see if I like that or not. And then this title, I am using the Alphabet a la Mode die set. So this is a die set that is a fairly narrow die that will create, again, letters. And the title is going to be from this Alphabet a la Mode die set. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and start adhering down the big pieces, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do the embellishment of this with the title and with the extra embellishment pieces that I have left over from the previous layout that I created. All right, so I've got everything adhered down now. And one of the things that I wanted to do is get the title on next. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how I'm going to do this. These letters are super duper thin. And usually I like to use tape runner of some sort to adhere down my letters, but these are pretty flimsy or fragile letters because they are so thin. But I do want them lined up and fairly straight. And so what I've done is I've just taken my ruler, and this ruler is really nice because it's got grid lines, not only going from left to right, but also up and down. And so I actually just put a little bit of tape runner along the top of this grid line. And that way I was able to line up these letters on this first block or first square that is part of that grid. And that way I can then get all of the letters down. And I can look positioning wise, where do I want to put them? How high up do I want it? I can bring in this piece here that I thought I might want to use as well and slide that underneath this and see, do I want the letters to touch and be part of that or not? Do I want it down below there? So this gives me the opportunity to sort of work with these letters and then place them where I think they're going to best work for this particular layout. In this case, I don't think I want them to cover this piece here that I'm planning to add. So I am going to come down just below it, and that should still give me plenty of room to add in the memories. So if I just put this down here, I still have plenty of room down here for these tall letters. These letters are roughly, let me just get a measurement here. These letters are about just about 1.5 inches tall. So they are quite tall. And so now what I can do is I can turn this over and I can take my precision glue and I can add glue to these letters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and slide this over so that I can do this on my all-purpose mat. So any glue that might overrun, I have the ability to wipe off and not get on my layout. I do tend to work on top of my layout a little bit too much, and so having some sort of silicone mat or glass mat is going to help you when you're working with messy things like we've been doing with this particular layout, whether it's inking or gluing or anything like that. So again, I'm just going to come in and I'm going to move this just so I have a flat surface here. So I'm going to press this down so these letters don't move too much. And then I'm going to just dab on some of this glue. And you do have to work kind of quickly because you don't want this glue to dry while you're doing it. So we'll be hopeful that I can do this quickly. And then I can press these down. And then if I need to come back and add a little bit of glue to the bottom of these letters, I can do that. But I find that this is the best way for me on tiny letters to be able to get them lined up and get them glued down in a semi-straight manner. I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to my scrapbooking. I don't do a whole lot of measuring per se. I do some, but a lot of the stuff I do is eyeballed, and I'm okay with that. If you like to be precise, that's also great. It's just a matter of preference, and I'm okay with it not being perfect because I do feel like this is handmade and it's okay for it to not be perfect. All right, so now that I've got that, I just do want to make sure my paper is straight. And then I'm going to line this up. Make sure my paper again is fairly straight. Line this up. And then I can press my letters down and hopefully I've got enough adhesive on them that they will stay stuck and the adhesive did not dry too much. All right, so this P is not exactly perfect. And my glue dried a little bit too much. But I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get these to stay down. Not sure if they will. I think my glue dried a little faster than I planned. So I'm going to come in here with my tool and I'm going to flip this over to the spatula side and I'm going to just see if I can get these to lift off gently here. Yeah, I might not have had enough glue to make that work. I might have to flip this back over and do it again because I feel like they're kind of glued down but not quite. All right, let's see if we got that going. I do like this little spatula on this tool. I don't remember the name of this tool. Pick up tool, maybe? can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look that up. But this is a really flat spatula, which makes it easy to get underneath, or easier to get underneath things that are already adhered down. Okay, so I just rotated that out, and I'm going to just come in and I'm going to add a little bit of glue on each one of these bottom edges. Oops. Need to get a hole going. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to just put a little bit of glue here. And try and keep it straight. And then that way I know that at least we've got a good adherence down here at the bottom. And with liquid glue, you do have to hold it down for a second. I'm sort of used to the instant gratification of tape runners. And I forget that with liquid glue, you got to give it a second to actually penetrate both papers. All right. So I will do the second part of the title, which is memories. And then we'll come back and I will finish up the embellishments on this particular layout. Right. So we have now got our title down and we are ready to start embellishing. So like I said, I've got these 2 half circles that I wanted to play around with to add a little bit more, just another shape into this, and then also to bring in some more of that gold. And then I have a bunch of the flowers that I stamped and then I had cut out from the previous layout. And so I'm going to start playing around with laying these guys out on the layout. Now, remember, I've said this before, you want to start with your bigger pieces first. So in that case, these flowers are my bigger pieces. And I am looking at where I want to place those as my first level of embellishment. And then I can come in and I can grab some of these smaller pieces, some of these smaller flowers that I can add in. And again, I do still have some bigger pieces as well. I think I'll put a small one down there. And I'm looking to build a visual triangle. So I'm trying to grab the eye and trying to move it from one side of the page to the other side of the page. So that's the goal. And let's see, I think we'll do that one there. And then I've got even smaller elements, again, with these little pieces that I can also add in as additional ways of drawing the eye from one direction to another on this layout. So like that, and I'm just seeing what I have left. I think I need another small guy over here. And then the last thing that we'll probably do is add some other bling onto this once I feel comfortable with what we have. Okay, so I do feel like this is not working over here. So we're gonna bring that there like this. Maybe bring in another one of these guys here. Like so. Just not quite as happy with that one as I would have liked. Okay. That's a little bit better. All right, so we're going to go ahead and adhere these guys down, and then we will, and I'm going to just, I'm trying to decide. I think I will pull in some dimensionals here. on this one, just to give it a little bit more. I'm using the edges of these dimensionals so that I can use up all of this foam tape. So just cutting it into smaller pieces. I've already put in the request for Stampin' Up! To carry scissors that are non-stick, because using the dimensionals or using anything that's sticky, these are great. I don't expect that I will get rid of these anytime soon. Okay, so I think we'll do that. Put that over there. And I will speed up this part of the assembly as I put on all of these embellishments. All right, so I've got all of those embellishments down, and I'm feeling pretty happy with that. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to take a look at some of the Stampin' Up! Embellishments that I have purchased. And so I've got these flat-backed pearl adhesive ones. I don't think those really work. These ones here that are the textured dots, again, I don't feel like that industrial look will work, but I do feel like these metallic gems might work. I could actually do these butterflies, so we might take a look at that one. And then I do have, again, a few more metallic-like pieces here. So we're going to just sort of play around and we're going to see which ones of these might actually be a good fit. I'm just wondering, these butterflies might add just the right amount of whimsy to this. And so these might actually be the ones that I end up going with. They weren't my first pick when I was thinking about what I had, but I forgot that I had these brass ones. And so just taking a look at them against the silver, or for the gold, I think those actually work pretty well. So I think I am going to use these, and I don't know, again, I haven't played with this pickup tool very much, so I'm not exactly sure the best way to use it, but I think I'm going to grab that, and I think we'll add a butterfly up there, and I think I'm going to turn this around to the actual pokey tool part. And I'm not going to pick up too many of these, but I'm going to pick up some of these in various different sizes and kind of play around with this, and then we might come back with some more of the other gems. But just to kind of play around, these are kind of fun. Maybe put that up here like that. And maybe we'll take one more big one over here. Trying to make sure I get the adhesive off. Okay, so these are brushed brass, so these are metal. All right, I think I'm going to stop there because I don't want to have too many of those because they're very specific. But then I want to look and see if I want to add in any of these guys. Not liking that one too much. Let's see if I like this one. As you can tell, some of these I haven't even played with yet. I got these in just recently. Okay, those very well could work, but I do want to look at this last one just to double check that I don't want these guys. I think I'm liking these sequins the best. So I think we're going to go with those. All right, so I'm going to take some of these gold sequins and add them as well. And then this layout will be done. And hopefully you guys got some cool ideas with this layout, some techniques that maybe you had played around with ink smudging years ago and hadn't really thought about it recently as to ways that you could play around with ink smudging and how you can add it to your base pages and really create some cool effects with the water-based inks, whether they're close to my heart inks or if they are Stampin' Up inks. Again, they're all water-based. So the nice thing is that you can play around with this technique no matter which type of water-based ink you might have. And I will say that even though I was disappointed with this, with having to change my layout, at the end of the day, right now, just looking at it as a finished layout, and I'm going to go ahead and add in some more of these. I'm actually really happy with this. I'm actually, I wasn't sure how it was going to go. My plan kind of manifested itself as I went along, and I didn't have a true plan when I started this video because of that change. And I do have to say that I am pretty happy overall with this layout now that it's completed. So I'm going to just bring it up just so you can see some of those details that I've added. And I think overall, I'm pretty happy with this layout and the uniqueness of it. So I hope you liked this video and found, like I said, something useful that you can take away. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions or if you like this layout and have any comments that you'd like to leave me. I'd love to see those or hear from you. And if you are not a subscriber, I would love to have you as a subscriber. I really do appreciate all the subscription people that hit the subscribe button. It is really really sweet, and I do look forward to getting my subscriber count up, so I love it when I get a few new ones. And then I will see you on my next video, which will be about what I've learned in the last month. So it's going to be a little bit less of a process video and a little bit more about what I've learned in this last month as being a Stampin' Up demonstrator. So I hope to see you on that video, and have a great day, everyone. Thanks. Bye.